Argentina opens field hospital in Buenos Aires to ease the pressure on hospitals. Hospitals across India are overwhelmed as the country battles the worst coronavirus surge. And restaurants and bars in Hungary reopen outdoor service as vaccination campaign progresses. Hello and welcome to teleSUR English. I'm Jose Daniel Lopez in Quito, Ecuador, and this is from the south. Argentine authorities have set up a military field hospital in the capital, Buenos Aires, as hospitals struggle to cope with the new wave of COVID-19 infections. The country's hospitals have been overwhelmed by an increasing number of COVID-19 patients and lack of oxygen cylinders. New lockdown restrictions have already been put in place. Health officials have attributed the surge to the more contagious Brazilian COVID-19 variant. Argentina has recorded almost 3 million coronavirus cases and more than 61,000 people have died from the pandemic.
We have a very high demand on the emergency room. Doctors on duty receive COVID and non-COVID patients in a much greater proportion than in the previous weeks. We are afraid this wave will overwhelm us, so to speak. The Manaus virus variant is in circulation in the province of Buenos Aires in 70 to 80%, and that could have to do, and I say it conditionally, with the increase in cases, the severity of the cases, with the infection of young people, and with the severe conditions that we are seeing in older adults.
On Friday, health authorities in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro announced that 90% of residents at the age of 60 have received first dose of a coronavirus vaccine.
We have finished this phase and will become one of the first capital cities to vaccinate the elderly over 60 years of age. Why did we choose the elderly? What was the justification? They are a priority group because they face the most likelihood of hospitalizations and more chances of dying from COVID-19.
And staying in Rio de Janeiro, people aged over 60 are being vaccinated against COVID-19 with the AstraZeneca jab. The country has registered the world's second highest COVID-19 death toll and leads the Americas and the entire southern hemisphere in terms of its overall recorded death rate.
It is very bad. A lot of people are dying and we are worried. So, when we get the first dose, it already gives some relief. And when the second comes, it will be even better.
We are losing a lot of acquaintances, neighbors. I hope the vaccine will calm things down, that it gets better, so we can work, take a walk, because everything has come to a halt.
Colombia's anti-riot squad has entered the University of El Valle to repress a peaceful protest by students. Officers launched tear gas inside the campus located in Cali to disperse students who had been occupying the university, to demand guarantees to complete their studies and to reject proposed tax reforms and the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Under the justification of enforcing COVID-19 restrictions, local authorities have threatened the university's students with the use of force to clear the campus. Also in Colombia, at least 22 people have been injured after armed groups attacked an indigenous march in the department of Cauca. The attack took place after local communities began a march against the cultivation of illicit crops like coca in the region, and following the murder of local indigenous governor Sandra Liliana Peña. Communities expressed their anger due to the continued violation of human rights while denouncing the lack of protection from the state. People aged over 80 are receiving the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine in Peru's capital, Lima, as the country accelerates its inoculation campaign using military bases and sports stadiums as vaccination centers. The country is registering more than 300 daily deaths from the virus in what interim President Francisco Sagasti has described as the peak of the second wave.
I am happy because I have brought my auntie to get vaccinated. She is 86 years old, and this vaccine will protect her from the virus that we are all suffering from at the moment.
We came to get my mother vaccinated. Everything ran smoothly. There wasn't a long queue. Everything in order. They give preferences to people in wheelchairs. But now, thank God, my 84-year-old mother is vaccinated with the first dose.
I didn't want him to get vaccinated. He is 96 years old, and he never gets sick. But my brothers and sisters were all saying that he should be vaccinated, so we are going to get him vaccinated.
16 provinces of Ecuador enter a curfew and other mobility restrictions this Friday to fight the spread of COVID-19. The measures will be in place for 28 days and were issued as part of its efforts to fight a rapid surge in COVID-19 infections and deaths. A nighttime curfew will be implemented from Monday to Friday, while weekends will see a 24-hour curfew, during which time individuals may only leave their homes for essential purposes, including purchase of basic goods and responding to medical issues. In the remaining provinces of the country, other measures will be in effect, such as the prohibition of alcohol consumption, the use of teleworking where possible, and the suspension in-person classes. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough, and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomy. Monday, only on teleSUR. Every year, thousands of people leave their homeland to reach new horizons. A reality of those people who struggle for their freedom. Know the diverse causes of those who live between borders. Thursdays, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back. Bolivia have wrapped up a forum titled The Re-Encounter with the Pachamama, which sought to promote legislations aimed at tackling ecocide and deepen the protection of the environment. The event saw the participation of academics, activists, and intellectuals from Bolivia and the rest of the world. A high-level panel also featured the presidents of Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Bolivia, as well as the Prime Minister of Dominica and Cuba's Foreign Minister. The forum was held in the framework of International Earth Day, a UN-recognized event that was established following a resolution presented by Bolivia 12 years ago. During the conference, the President of Bolivia, Luis Arce, informed of some of the measures approved in the country to protect the environment.
We have approved Law 071 of the Rights of Mother Earth of December 21st, 2010, which recognizes the rights of Mother Earth as well as the obligations and duties of society to ensure respect for these rights. With this law, the Ombudsman Mother Earth is created, which we must recognize needs implementation. We have advanced in the approval of Law number 300, the Framework of Mother Earth and Comprehensive Development for Living Well, where the vision and goals of comprehensive development as a means to achieve good living are identified, as well as the guarantees of the rights of Mother Earth, among other issues stressed in this law. In this same law, the Plurinational Authority of Mother Earth has been constituted to work on the dynamic processes of climate change. In recent years, several states have also recognized that nature has rights, such as Ecuador, New Zealand, which recognize that the Huancuanui River is a legal entity. Likewise, a recent landmark ruling by the Colombian Supreme Court of Justice also ruled that the Amazon has the same rights as a person.
Also speaking during the event, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro spoke of the need for united action to demand global compliance with the agreements reached on climate change.
A huge mobilization of environmental and social organizations, and also for the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of our Americas to present the agenda approved in this meeting of the Pachamama to the world's governments at the summit in Glasgow in November of this year, 2021, to resume the initiative, as President Daniel Ortega said, to resume the initiative to demand compliance with the agreement signed, to resume the initiative to raise a grand lobbying movement for a great change in the world model, to resume the initiative to demand actions that allow our peoples access to new technologies, to financing, and to the construction of a true green economy.
Cuban health authorities are getting ready to launch a mass vaccination campaign against COVID-19 in Havana in May. The Cuban Health Ministry stated that vaccines candidates Soberana 02 and Abdala will be applied in all Havana districts that were not already part of the Phase 3 clinical trials. The campaign will cover around 1.7 million people. The vaccination will initially target people aged 60 and over, considered one of the most vulnerable groups. Pregnant and postpartum women and infants, as well as those who have recovered from the disease, will be excluded from the campaign. And this Friday, Cuba reported a new daily record for COVID-19 cases at 1,241. Despite the restrictions that remain in place to fight the spread of the virus, the country continues to see a surge in cases. Havana and Matanzas once again recorded the highest number of infections. Despite the rising figures, Cuba's infection rate remains low compared to other nations in the region, and the recovery rate is over 94%. As the pandemic hit the Caribbean, the region received significant help from Cuba, India, and Taiwan, while the U.S. government has largely failed to play a leading role, as noted by Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Timothy Harris. The Prime Minister referred in a phone interview the lack of aid from the world's most powerful country in the fight against the pandemic. The first vaccines to arrive in the Caribbean community were donated by India. Taiwan provided masks and face shields, while Cuba has sent its medical brigades to St. Kitts and other surrounding nations. The PM acknowledged that the U.S. is helping by providing $2 billion to the COVAX facility to supply vaccines to poor nations, but he stressed that the Caribbean has not seen any high-profile gestures from Washington. Harris noted that it is in Washington's interest to aid its neighbors, as by making vaccines available in the region, the U.S. could help revive economies, cut poverty, and thereby curb migration.
So we are doing that delicate balancing act.
St. Lucia is again serving as a humanitarian bridge for disaster assistance to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The help this time is coming from Venezuela and Cuba in the wake of the latest volcanic eruption. St. Lucia has acted as an aid bridge ever since the April 9th eruption at Lasso Free volcano forced the evacuation of tens of thousands of people. The embassies of Cuba and Venezuela in the country arranged the transfer of Cuba's airlifted supplies for on-ground passage to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Cuba also sent 6 medical personnel to support the efforts. This week, a Venezuelan Navy supply ship left St. Lucia's waters carrying relief goods. The country also served as a humanitarian bridge for Cuba and Venezuelan assistance to neighboring Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, and St. Kitts and Nevis following destruction by Hurricanes Maria and Irma in 2017. Healthcare workers received vaccinations against COVID-19 in a remote village in northern Sudan as part of a nationwide inoculation campaign that began last month. Sudan secured the AstraZeneca doses last month through the Global COVAX Initiative.
Thank God, as a start, we at the Health Ministry managed to provide 3,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. We have set up workshops and trained medical staff on the methods to sterilize and follow up on the complications of the vaccine, which may occur. There is a team overseeing vaccination centers, and we have 16 other centers across the state. As a committee inspecting the side effects of the coronavirus vaccine, we have not yet found any complaints of any serious side effect. We have not even received complaints of minor side effects.
This Friday, Chad's capital N'Djamena hosted the state funeral of President Idris Deby, who passed away on Tuesday after being wounded in combat against rebels in the north of the country. The ceremony was attended by numerous heads of state, including the presidents of France, Mali, Burkina Faso, the Central African Republic, and Guinea. Countries in the region have called on the African Union to address possible violent scenarios following the insurgent acts by the Front for Change and Concord in northern Chad. More news in a minute. Stay with us.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. teleSUR documentaries. Sundays. Only on teleSUR.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Sean todos muy bienvenidos a Vidas. Hay lugares donde el arte se unifica con el orgullo de los pueblos. Y esos lugares están llenos de colores, alegría, pasión, tradiciones, arraigo, valor y entrega.
Real Life. Fridays. Only on teleSUR.
Welcome back. Hospitals across India are overwhelmed as the country battles the world's fastest pace of spreading infections. Hospitals have complained of chronic shortages of oxygen and beds, and the government has blocked vaccine exports for several months to better meet needs at home, exacerbating the difficulty of poor countries to access vaccines. The government ramped up its efforts to get medical oxygen to hospitals using special oxygen express trains, Air Force planes, and trucks to transport tankers. The country is experiencing the world's worst coronavirus surge and set a new global daily record of infections for the third straight day. The nearly 347,000 infections over the past day brought India's total past 16 million, behind only the United States.
Just like the country, just like the city, we are faced with a difficult situation. We are faced with an unprecedented flux of patients with symptoms and signs similar to COVID, cough, fever, breathlessness. And we are trying our best to cope with this situation. We are faced with logistical as well as manpower, as well as other related dilemmas which are forcing
urging other countries to be vigilant in combating the pandemic.
The situation in India is a devastating reminder of what this virus can do and why we must marshal every tool against it in a comprehensive and integrated approach. Public health measures, vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics. This is a scenario that's playing out around the world and will continue to play out unless we ensure equitable access to the tools needed to save lives. The solution is straightforward. We need countries and companies that control the resources that could save lives to share.
Hungary has reopened bars and restaurants for outdoor service after nearly 6 months of lockdown. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban decided that restaurants and bars can reopen their outdoor terraces from Saturday, as more than a third of the population has received at least one dose of vaccines. Orban added other services such as hotels, theaters, cinemas, gyms, and indoor dining will be allowed to reopen once 4 million people have received at least one shot of vaccine, expected by the middle of next week. Hungary has carried out one of the fastest coronavirus vaccine rollouts in the EU thanks to its use of the Chinese Sinopharm and Russian Sputnik V jabs. But it has also one of the highest COVID-19 death tolls in the world in relation to its population size.
I think that fear is slowly being replaced by a sense of freedom, the kind of trust will return that characterized humanity before COVID.
Israeli police have arrested at least 44 people in Jerusalem during a protest by Palestinians against Ramadan restrictions. Security forces clashed with Palestinians angry about Ramadan restrictions and Jewish extremists who led an anti-Arab march nearby. Tensions have spiked in recent days in Jerusalem, which has long been a flashpoint in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and is home to holy sites sacred to Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Police used stun grenades and water cannon to disperse protesters, who then tackled the Jerusalem district court, pelting it rocks and stones. Meanwhile, scores of Palestinians have rallied in Gaza to denounce the clashes in Jerusalem. Hamas leaders have warned of greater repercussions for Israel because of ongoing attacks. In what seemed to be a retaliation for the incidents in Jerusalem, Palestinian militants in the Gaza Strip fired 3 rockets toward Israel late Friday. This was later answered by Israeli warplanes, which struck the Gaza Strip early Saturday.
Hamas warns of the great repercussions of the region in case the attack against the holy city and the violations against the places of worship, churches and mosques continue. Our people and its resistance will not stand idly in case of an attack against the city of Jerusalem.
Thousands have marched in the Armenian capital Yerevan to commemorate the 106th anniversary of the Armenian genocide under the Turkish Ottoman Empire. The annual march commemorates the anniversary of the massacres in which up to 1.5 million ethnic Armenians were killed during World War I as the Ottoman Empire collapsed. The massacre has been described as the first genocide of the 20th century. Armenians have long waited to have the killings internationally recognized as a genocide with the support of many other countries, but rejected by Turkey. US President Joe Biden is expected to formally recognize the mass killing and deportation of Armenian people from 1915 to 1916 as a genocide on Saturday. In Beirut, Lebanese Armenians also marched to commemorate the anniversary of the mass killings by the Ottoman forces.
It is a very big problem of injustice. Therefore, I don't think Armenians will forget until they get recognition as genocide, compensation and acknowledgement of the heinous crime that took place, which is an attempt to exterminate a whole people.
I came to commemorate the memory of the Armenian martyrs. I joined them as Lebanese because Armenians are Lebanese, and because Armenians are people who fought and migrated several times from Armenia to Syria, from Syria to Lebanon, and from Lebanon to the rest of the world, and built this East.
A virtual summit on climate change promoted by the United States have also wrapped up. US President Joe Biden pledged a greater commitment to reduce global warming. Among Biden's proposals for the 40 countries invited to the summit was to limit global warming to below 2 and preferably 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels, a goal already set by the Paris Agreement. Japan, it said it aims to reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 46% by 2030. Meanwhile, Canada announced a 40 to 45% reduction in its emissions over the same period. The European Union promised to reduce its emissions by at least 55%. The UK is set to host the 26th UN Climate Change Conference in the city of Glasgow in November to accelerate actions towards the goals of the Paris Agreement and the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. More protests are planned this weekend in the United States in the wake of a deadly shooting of a black 16-year-old girl by police in Columbus, Ohio. This after the Biden administration announced this week it will open a civil rights investigation into the Minneapolis Police Department following the conviction of former police officer Derek Chauvin on all accounts in the death of George Floyd. Some in Ohio's capital city are pleading for similar attention following the death of Micah Bryan, a black teenager who was shot by police on Tuesday afternoon, just minutes before the Chauvin verdict was announced. The Department of Justice has previously investigated Columbus police over the use of force allegations. Protesters denounced what they said is a decade of patterns and practices of racism and are calling for a fresh investigation. And we come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories in our website at telesurenglish.net. And don't forget to join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.